An educator, I don't know what to write. He said, well, think of something and write about it. So I thought about something and I wrote it. Then when I went to the class, I handed it in, and he says to me, you have to read it in front of the class. I said, look, I told you I'm not a professional. I'm an amateur. He says, no, your story is so good, you have to read it in front of the class. So there were a couple others that read their story, and I read my story. So here's the story. There's something that took place in my lifetime, in our family. Maybe you'll remember it. It's a little bit sad, but pay attention, okay? Okay, so I named the story A Tragic Remembrance. Something took place, tragedy that you're going to remember all your life. It was November 25th, 1948, on a cold, sunny, windy fall day. My mother and uncle went on a mission to gather and bring home firewood for the winter. The place was about 3 miles away from our home, in a rural area. The road was rocky and can only be traveled on foot or working animals, which consist of oxen, donkeys, or mules. Oxen are animals used to pull heavy loaded wagons, and to plow the land. Donkeys can carry some weight, used for riding or carrying essential needs for working of the land. Mules are very strong animals, known for carrying heavy loads on their back and pulling wagons. They derive from a mixed breed of horse and donkey. As I remember, only males were used. My uncle owned the mules and was essential, the only source of energy available in this rural town was wood, which was used to cook, bake bread in ovens, and heat from fireplaces only. There were no stoves and no electricity. Candles were used for light. We didn't have electricity, we didn't have candles, we didn't have stoves. This is where I lived. Everybody was in poverty. World War II was not too far behind us. Our neighborhood was occupied by German soldiers, chased by American soldiers, who camped out about a half a mile away from our homes. Being in danger, we left our homes and settled in a country barn for 41 days. Bombs and landmines destroyed roads and bridges. This tragedy occurred in a parcel of land owned by my family, about a quarter of a mile from the barn. Being a cold day, my mother and my uncle gathered some branches and lit a fire to get warm, while 2 mules were fastening on grass. My mother was lacing her shoe, and my uncle standing near the fire, getting warm. Before loading the firewood on the back of the mules. A sudden explosion occurred where the fire was. A very loud noise. Wondered a young girl attending her sheep and hearing a human voice rushed to the scene. A pedestrian named Angelo, walking on a rural country road, coming from a neighborhood town, heard the loud explosion, rushed to the scene, trying to aid my mother, bleeding. The shrapnel from the bomb cut my uncle's artery in the neck, caused him to drop backward on the ground and died a short time. Before too long, neighbors not too far from the site came to the scene. My mother was carried on a stretcher for the long distance and stopped in a neighborhood about a mile away from the center of town. More people gathered at the site, guarding my dead uncle, while others rushed to his home and notified his family, who lived in the center of this small town called Ponte Landolfo. The police went to the scene immediately. Their way of getting there was on foot only. This process was time-consuming because of the long distance. I came home from grammar school and my grandmother was crying and waiting for me. She didn't know exactly what happened, but knew that something tragic took place. My grandmother and I rushed to the neighborhood where my mother was. We learned that it was a bomb explosion. When I saw the stretcher and my mother covered with a blanket, I was confused. Someone uncovered my mother's head She was full of blood, but still alive. She noticed me and extended her hand to stay close to her. The shrapnel from the bomb caused her excessive pain, especially in the right eye. When the doctor came to aid her, he ordered to take her home and I'll visit her daily. The nearest hospital was in the city of Benevento, a city demolished from bombs during the war. As of now, my grandmother and I did not know that my uncle was dead. Where the explosion occurred, a bomb dropped from a plane, fell into soft dirt, and did not explode. It was covered with dirt and grass had grown over it. The night got darker, and taking my dead uncle to his home from a long distance was a long, long journey. Torches were visible from that far distance as his body was carried home. This was a very sad period for my family. Friends and neighbors, whom my uncle was well known for his working mules and wagon transporting, even dead people to the cemetery, followed by a long, long procession. As time went on, we immigrated into the United States legally, where my dad was. My mother gained some vision from the tragedy, but after 30 years, a light glaucoma occurred, causing massive pain. The eye was removed and she looked the same with her artificial eye. When asked how she was feeling, her reply was, "St. Lucy helped me thus far, I'm going to get better." She worked in a factory, devoted to her employer, and a model to her family and friends. She appreciated life and all the blessing we have. Her devotion to this sad episode was on the 25th of November every year, eat a light meal of bread and water only and pray to St. Lucy, her devoted saint. And this was October 26, 2018. I want to share this with you young people. Okay? This is something that took place in our family. All right? Now, when I handed this to my professor, he says to me, "You have to read the story." I says, "No," I said, "I can't do that. I'm not a professional." He said, "You have to read it." So I read the story. And then, after I got through with the story, he says, "It would be nice if someone else would write the same story from a different point of view." So I thought of Mary Lou. She wasn't there. She was born many years later. So her side of the story is over here. She's going to read it. Where is she? Mary Lou, it's your turn.